This is a section about salary. What women want in terms of salary. And there is a profound lack of self-awareness in this section. So I am going to play two chunks of this. We're going to go 11 to 13, 17. We're going to let that play, Tyler, and then we're going to play a second section. But just think about what they're saying and really absorb it. Okay, it's very important. Okay.
As long as like we have enough money to, I don't know, go on dates and like do like concerts, like fun stuff.
No, doesn't really matter. If he has goals, like if the salary's not amazing right now, but he has goals for himself and, you know, he's working towards something that's important to me, but everyone's in different places at different times. So I feel like immediate salary, just as long as we could still have fun.
If his bills are paid and he treats me right, I don't think money should be an object because it doesn't last forever.
No, salary not too much. As long as you're making like a decent income for yourself and you can live within those means.
I would say like same answer as his job title. It doesn't really matter what you're making right now, but if you're ambitious and you have like high expectations for yourself and high goals for yourself, then that's very attractive.
It is important because, you know, for me as a female, I plan to be making a certain amount at a certain age. And the man that I expect to be with, I want him to be a hustler and a go-getter too. And, you know, the harder you work, the more you work, the higher you're going to move up, the more your salary is going to raise. So also, if you plan to be with somebody and you plan to have a family, you have to support your children and each other. So I do think salary matters because it's, you know, kind of going to show you what the future is going to look like and what kind of struggles or what kind of things you can do.
I wouldn't say it doesn't matter. I think, you know, if we're thinking about a long-term thing, we're partners. So thinking about things in that way, I had to consider what my salary is and what kind of life we want to live. If he's making less money than me and I'm the breadwinner, I personally would be uncomfortable just from what I'm making at this moment. If we're like at a point where I feel like I'm comfortable on my own, we'd be fine together, I really don't care.
Okay, so you see that, you listen, and you're like, oh, all right. Vast majority, that one woman says, yes, salary is important, but most of them are like, well, it's not really a big deal as long as you can pay your bills, as long as you know you can provide a partner, and as long as you can provide some support. And sounds perfectly reasonable, their answers there, right? Guys at home are like, oh, okay. They're absorbing that, and they're like, all right, they're not being too picky about salary. They're just saying, you know, you want someone who's working, who's hardworking, who's working towards something. But it doesn't sound particularly challenging. Like, it doesn't sound like, oh, that's like the top 1% of the population. No, it sounds really reasonable. Well, this is the interesting part, because now Courtney goes in and says, well, let's talk about, based on what you just said, that sounds like really reasonable, is what she's thinking in her head. She says, well, now let's talk some numbers. So let's hear. Guys, you better
It's
be
like
ready.
a decent salary, like something that you would be like, okay, he needs to make this much money.
I don't think there's a number in mind, especially for right now, but I would say if he's not ever making more than, let's say, $100,000, then I would be a little bit worried about our future.
I'm going to say like in the 70s. I don't know. There's like the gender wage gap, so I don't even know.
For the love of God.
I would say enough to live a life of leisure, in a sense. Like, not have to worry about your rent, your utilities, stuff like that. But also, obviously, a more desirable man would be able to take care of our kids, of myself, of our older parents. So I would say somewhere between $400K to wherever. Like, there's no bar.
At 23, if I were to be dating a man right now, 80K is pretty good. 80 to 100K is what I'd be looking for.
Girlfriend.
Jesus, that's like 0.1% of
Yeah,
that.
somewhere around 80 to 100.
We're going to get to it. Oh, yeah.
In your mid-20s.
80 to 100, mid-20s.
I think 6 figures is definitely decent for, it's a little, you got to work hard for it nowadays, but
yes.
for an income, you know, to create a family and things of that nature, like at least 100,000 is acceptable. I mean, we'll take less, but it
Acceptable.
depends on your job and your career and what you're doing.
Yeah, a lot of girls have said that, and I actually just recently read the statistic where only 2% of men between the ages of 20 and 40 make 6 figures and are over 6 feet, which is like 2 of the things that women typically say they want.
Right.
But it's crazy to think about the fact that there's only 2% of men
Yeah, that are out
making
there.
that much. Yeah,
I'll take a short guy that makes $1 million all day long.
that's a fair compromise, right?
Yeah, that's sad because I plan to be making 100K or more, hopefully before 30.
Well.
It's just crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah, and then when all girls want that, they're all going after the same men, and it's like, what are you gonna do?
Right.
I don't know. Maybe I'll have to get into a different industry.
Oh, look at that. We can pause. Maybe he has to get into a different industry. Okay. Where does one begin? So they go through the numbers. 100K. One says the 70s. Enough. This, my favorite, was the one that said, oh, I want us all to live a life of leisure where you don't have to worry about bills or any of that. Not only does she want you to take care of her and the kids, by the way, but you got to take care of the elderly parents. I mean, there was a whole, it's like Cousin Sam may hop on. Aunt Stella needs a new bike. You got to be able to take care of that too. So she's unapologetic. 400K. Okay. 400K. It's
Everything else I got,
$500,000.
she goes, yeah, 400 grand. Jesus.
It's almost $500,000. Talk about like it's just 400K. 400K is a lot of money to earn. It's hard to make $400,000. Okay, and plus if you make $400,000, remember, depending upon where you live, you're not taking home anywhere close to that. So another one says that 23. Oh, 80 to 100K. 23? 80 to 100K? That's a hefty salary for someone in their early 20s. I don't know where you live, honey. Let's talk about it. And another one says 6 figures, but she's like, that's acceptable. As if she said like 30 grand. 6 figures, acceptable. 6 figures is something that people work many years to get to. So what's interesting to me about this is that you saw that first clip we played where they seemed very like nonchalant about money. It was like, well, it's not a big deal. At one point they talk about your title and they're like, oh, well, that's not, as long as you're working towards something and you can put food on the table. And then suddenly when asked to be specific about that dollar value, well, it got a little bit more strict, right? Suddenly it was like, do these women think that, just working and paying the bills and not that is the equivalent of a $400,000 salary? Now, I don't know where they're speaking from in terms of where they live. We all know that, $100,000 in New York City and $100,000 in a small town in Kansas is not the same. Your dollar doesn't do the same thing. And also remember, when you live in places like that, yeah, you tend to make more money, but everything costs more. Everything. You get a haircut, it costs more. You go to the grocery store, everything costs more. You get a sandwich at a cafe, it costs more. So you're constantly spending a ton of money. $100,000 in New York City is just not a lot of money. People who make $100,000 oftentimes can't even get a studio apartment alone because they can't meet the income requirements because you have to make, I don't know what it is, it's like 30 times the rent or something. It's extraordinary to get an apartment. The reason that people, by the way, in cities like that live as roommates all the time is because you can't make the income requirement unless you have a guarantor. You can't just go and get an apartment. And say you come out of college, you're making 50 grand, you think you're doing great. You go to get an apartment in Manhattan. Sorry, you can't get any. You can't make unless your dad or mom or somebody has money and can sign on for you. That's why they pack 4 and 5 people into an apartment, because then together, collaboratively, they make the income requirement. Regardless, though, I mean, 100K is a lot of money. So bottom line is, these women who think they're low maintenance, they think they are as long as you can pay your bills, I'm not focused on money. Money's not that important to me. They think they're that woman. When push comes to shove, they actually want you to make a shit ton of money. Because honestly, 6 figures and up is a lot of money. That's bringing in a lot of money. Most people do not make that. If you want to watch the full episode, you're going to click right here. And if you want to ask me a question one-on-one, you want to do a one-on-one FaceTime with a group of your friends, whatever you want, you need to download Connect right now. Click right here and let's get talking.